here. Order my t-shirt below and let everyone know you play D&D like a badass.
The one book every Dungeon Master needs to read, today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor Dungeon Master, coming to you from beautiful Dungeon University, wearing my +1 tweed jacket of insight. And this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D and other tabletop role-playing games.
And I'm Deathbringer. Level up your game by subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you'll be informed when we upload new videos.
There are several books on the required reading list of any would-be Dungeon Master. They include the Dungeon Master's Guide and Sly Flourish's Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Michael Shea, which will get its own review. It's terrific. But these books are about procedural things, about how to set up for specifically a game of Dungeons and Dragons. The book I'm going to recommend is not about games. It's about drama, and it's greatly shaped the way I have come to view role-playing games. And it is Aristotle's Poetics. Poetics is Aristotle's thesis as to what makes a good drama, or specifically a good tragedy. Now, Dungeons & Dragons isn't a tragic game unless you have a total party kill. It's a heroic fantasy. Nevertheless, the rules of drama still apply. According to Aristotle, drama consists of several parts, and I'm going to talk about 5. One is mimesis. It's an attempt to imitate or reproduce reality. It's an imitation of life. DMs create these fantastic worlds with elements like elves and dragons and wizards, but your world still needs to be consistent and logical. If there's a dungeon, who built it? Why? Where's the back door? Where are the toilets? How does that dragon fit through the entrance? How are spellcasters policed? In the real Middle Ages, fire was the greatest threat to civilization. If every 0-level wizard, warlock, and sorcerer can chuck unlimited firebolts, how do those in authorities prevent their cities and towns from total destruction? Who supervises the spellcasters? Are spellcasters required to be registered, licensed? Is it against the law to teach spells to chaotic or evil-aligned characters? Because it should be. I mean, that would be totally reasonable. Some players hate this because they don't like limits of any kind. They'll say, well, it's a fantasy game and anything should be able to happen. But that's just because they don't like limits. Game masters have to put some thought into this stuff if their world is going to seem real. 2 is catharsis. It's a release of tension and emotion. Have your players ever arrived for the game and said, boy, I really had a rough week. I can't wait to kill some monsters. They want to release tension. That's part of the fun of the game, is you could use your powers to crush some monsters and get out those real-world frustrations. Catharsis can also occur in the game. When you create a villain that your players really hate and give them the opportunity to kill that villain, they will feel a rush of adrenaline and feel that outpouring of emotion. And you can see it, like when they finally take that villain out, there's just applause and high fives all around the table. And that's how you know you've done a good job as a game master, creating a villain that's not just a technical obstacle, like they have a lot of hit points or a high armor class. It's a fictitious person that you've created that these people actually hate and have gotten joy because they've defeated them. So you want to give a certain degree of thought to those villains so they could achieve that catharsis. 3, plot. And plot is not so much the sequence of events as the relationships between those events. According to Aristotle, a plot is like a knot that slowly unravels. The tighter the relationships, the tighter the plot. Strong stories have clear beginnings, middles, and ends. There are no extraneous characters. Every character has a purpose. The best plots include surprises that are logical and the clues of which have been planted ahead of time. And when it's over, there are no loose ends. Think about Harry Potter. The conflict is established at the start. Harry's parents were killed by Voldemort. In the middle of the stories, he finds out Voldemort is somehow returning, and it ends with a final confrontation with Harry and Voldemort. Early on in your campaign, preferably in session 1, establish the existence of the villain. In the middle of the campaign, have an encounter with the henchman of the villain and end with a final confrontation with that villain. And if you use that formula, your players will be satisfied. 4. Character. Aristotle believes the best characters are noble and good, and the best drama is created when they arouse pity and fear. Now, this isn't to say you can't have an evil campaign. Lots of people do. I think that a campaign of evil characters is going to be like the movie The Wild Bunch. It's going to be short and explosive. It's easier to run a longer lasting campaign if the player characters is good, because for me, if I don't sympathize with those characters, like if I don't feel for them, if I'm not rooting for them, I'm not really interested in running that game. Like, I don't want to spend time with them. As far as arousing pity and fear, well, pity, that comes from it being a tragedy, like Macbeth, where he starts out as a hero and devolves into a villain. That doesn't happen too much in role-playing games, but you can elicit fear, and that's one of the reasons I don't like lots of hit points, death saves, healing word as a bonus action, revivify, bringing characters back to life. It's not because I'm mean and I want their characters to die. That's not it at all. The more hit points characters have and the more access to healing they have, the less they feel fear. One of the big challenges for a DM is that fear conflicts with many players' power fantasies, but without fear, you can't create drama. For drama to work, characters in a story need to be risking something. When you play an RPG, the players are risking their characters' lives. Granted, nobody wants to lose a character, but if you always win, your choices don't matter. I think a lot of Dungeon Masters are afraid to let characters die because they're afraid their players will quit. They may even threaten to quit, and that happens, but good players understand death needs to be a possibility if the game is to have any meaning. The players that I remember playing with in high school who always complained that their character died and gave the game master a hard time, like now, none of them are playing with me today. The ones that play with me are the ones I think that lost the most characters. And 5, spectacle. In a play, that means the stage itself, but your stage as a game master is the table. For some, spectacle manifests in the form of miniatures and dwarven forge and ultimate dungeon terrain. Other people use theater of the mind, and I always do it for Call of Cthulhu. I'll bring a black tablecloth, set up some candles, lower the lights, put on some spooky music. Do something to let the players know that this is a special experience. Aristotle believed tragedy shows us the patterns in human experience that we can use to make sense of our own experience. And that's what role-playing games do. Creates a world, a shared experience, where the players are powerful and they have an opportunity to shape their world, which is what we don't always have in real life. And that's part of what makes these games fun. So I would highly recommend you read Aristotle's Poetics, or if you haven't read it for a while, reread it through the lens of a dungeon master. I think you'll learn a lot. At least that's what I think. What do you think? Put your comments in the comments section below. Also below, you'll find links to Dungeon Craft on Facebook and Patreon, where you can view my masterclass. And you can get a copy of my House Rules Deathbringer, so check it out. And for more great Dungeon Craft content, click right over here. May all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. My favorite philosopher is Plato.
That's Plato. It's with a T.
Well, he sure looked like Plato when I got through with him. Now click on more Dungeon Craft.